Well, you know, I'm not exactly sure just yet, since I got this new update on how to stop that from talking to me every time, but I'll get around to it. Hey guys, gals, all y'all cool ass patriots. Welcome back to another episode of Waking the People. Sir Chad Everett Brochures and that other guy over there. That is Joshua, my patriot. You're Kraken. We'll switch it up this week. McClendon, the man that only Prince would sing about. Yeah. Or the man that even Prince would sing about. We'll go with that one. Now, Joshua, we got a bit of a show and we got a little bit of time to do it. So we got quite a bit to get into. You want to introduce the topics for us?
Absolutely. Well, welcome back, everyone. It's hump day. We made it to the middle of the week. All kinds of crazy stuff going on that we're going to get into. Some breaking news, Chad. We got a couple breaking news story. Wouldn't be the first time we've actually had breaking news that we beat mainstream media to getting to you fine subscribers, those likers, those commenters. If you have not yet, please do subscribe, pound that bell, get all of our notifications, thumbs up, comment. It really helps Chad and I out and help support the channel. You're here all the time, so thank you. So here's what we're going to do, Chad. Today we got our breaking news story. We got the AMC stock up 104% today, Chad.
Hey, even Athena is excited. In case you didn't hear, just bark. Yeah.
And Chad, we have Tyrone Woodley versus Jake Paul, a fight that we've actually talked about on the show before. I think it was a couple episodes ago. And then we have some more breaking news that we're going to share that Chad is actually going to discuss with you guys today.
Got some Iranian stuff going on. Iranian. All right, well, let's get into our first one. So we'll do this. I'll save the Iranian one for a little bit later. So do you want to jump right into, we'll get a hold of a piece of this stock there as AMC is taken off to the moon, which that's insane what it did in one day.
It's crazy.
That's a rocket.
It's the power of the internet, Chad. Again, so we've talked about in the show. I can't remember what episode it was. It had to have been near the beginning of the show. And we talked about the short squeeze, Chad, not that short squeeze, right? The short
I've been doing that for a while.
The short squeeze that happened with GameStop stock and the Redditors, that is Wall Street Bets, figuring out, I guess you could say, a loophole, kind of, and how to manipulate the market, just like the hedge funds and some big investors can manipulate the market, but us small retail investors really don't have the power to do so. So these guys, they figured out that AMC was being shorted very much so like GameStop was. Not to the extent that GameStop was. GameStop, I think when it was all said and done, like 140% of GameStop's shares were being shorted. And I think I've talked on the show a little bit about what being shorted means, right, Chad? Are you familiar with what that means?
Yeah, we brought it up early on, probably, I think it was episode 3. And it's where they pump up the stock enough and then they drop off real quick. So kind of manipulate the stock to make it look more valuable. And then they dump out real quick and then leave the people that still have stock holding the bag. Is that about right?
In a way, yeah. So you can, there's this thing called options. So you can buy options and you can sell options. So when you buy an option, you are putting in what's called a premium, to where you control 100 shares of stock for a certain amount of time at a certain price, which is called a strike price. So you can buy them. When you buy them, you have to pay that premium. Now, when you sell options, or you're selling, if you think the stock is going to go down, you can sell an option to where you will take a premium, you will receive a certain amount of money, you're going to be given shares of the company that you don't really own, you're borrowing them for a certain amount of time at a certain price, because remember, you think that the stock's going to go down. So what these guys figured out is that the hedge funds, if they could figure out what companies were being shorted the most, then what would happen is is that, again, remember the big hedge funds borrowed the shares and they, use them for capital. They use that for capital gains, for money. And there's going to come a day where they have to buy that 100 shares of stock that they originally took money for. And their plan was to buy it at a lesser price than it was when they bought it, so they could make money. But if you raise the price way past what they bought it at and keep pushing and pushing and pushing it higher, and you don't sell, then when push comes to shove and they have to buy back that stock, they're going to have to take a massive loss because obviously they wanted it to go down. And in order to make back their money, they have to buy the stock, which drives it even higher. It's nasty.
Shorting is kind of like piggybacking, right? Like you don't actually own the stock. You're betting on its success or failure.
Mhm.
Right. So you put money on it. If you think the stock's going to go up, where you buy in is whatever accumulates beyond that, you get an accrued value, like you get interest on it. You earn money on it. But if it loses before you sell your interest or your what do they call that? The option. Before you sell your option, if you don't sell it in time, you're going to lose money off of it. But you can sell it before the deadline, right? Because every time you buy an option, it has a window of time, and you can't hold on to it longer.
So here's the one, and here's the one difference between buying an option. So when I buy an option, if it gets to the date where I have to buy the stock, I can choose not to. I can say, I don't want to buy it. I'll take my loss, whether it be some money, all my money, I'm out. Now, when you sell shorts, when you sell options, Chad, and you think it's going to go down, you have to buy the stock. If you get to your strike price, if you get to the date where it's done, you have to buy it. You're obligated to buy it. Yes. So these guys are trying to push it to those dates to where they can get it way past it, and they either can sell at a loss or they can ride that sucker. Yes. Yes.
So it's no longer writing an option at that point.
Yeah.
Because the option, it basically expires.
Yes.
So either they sell it, take a loss, or they go ahead and buy the stock and write it up.
Mhm.
Okay, it's interesting. This is new to me. It's newer. I have had a friend of mine, another guy named Joshua. He goes by Josh though, and he was giving me more insight and kind of educating me on it. But unfortunately, I was just so far away from being able to invest anything that I really didn't. It didn't necessarily resonate for me. So okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So
Josh,
that makes
I
more
got
sense
into it.
also. Yeah. And that's something that makes it makes more sense too. Like the meme stocks, like AMC and Doge and companies like that. Predominantly it's more AMC and GameStop is more the more meme stocks. And at least the earlier ones, they were meme stocks with purpose, right? Because these people recognized that GameStop and AMC were being treated so unfairly. They were being manipulated on purpose to earn more money, and basically just off of people's trust that the companies would do well. And those are the people they were managing to get the money out of. And then what is it? Loaning their interest to somebody else that they could either sell or buy the interest. And all of these different convoluted things, but it was recognized that they were doing such a disservice to these companies, and the companies had no hand in it. AMC nor GameStop had no hand in it. And they were constantly abused. They did this to other stocks too, but these are the two where they finally jumped on and said, you know what, we can do something to take it back. So, and that's where these people from the Reddit postings or whatever Reddit is, from the Reddit app or website, where they decided they were going to come together and, say, you know what, big middle finger to these companies that have been abusing these poor companies. And now it's actually screwing these major hedge funds.
Do you know how much they lost last week, Chad?
The hedge funds?
Mm-hmm.
How much?
1.2 billion on AMC.
On AMC alone?
Yeah.
God damn. Good.
1 week.
Yeah. Look, I say good, but the shitty thing is that these hedge funds, they have people's retirement funds. And where they're investing it, what they do with that money, these hedge funds are losing their clients' money. Now, I'm sure they're losing their own money, but they're losing their clients' money. Now, that's other people's retirement. And that's a shitty thing. But then again, how are you ever going to get these companies to stop doing this stuff? Look at what they did when it first happened. They locked up a lot of the methods for being able to access the shares, these two stocks. They locked them down. GameStop and AMC, they locked them down so you couldn't. They went to Robinhood, they went to multiple other apps and said, you can't trade these right now. Stop trading. Don't let anybody else buy in. So I'm glad to see that at least somebody stopped them, but look how crooked they are and like how quick they are to try to continue to rig the game, stopping the people from being able to purchase in. Like, glad that they finally got caught. And if we can't get justice by bringing them to justice through the legal system, then Robinhood is the perfect example of a great app for it. Although I'm not saying Robinhood necessarily is a great app, but the concept of Robinhood really is kind of like played right through that app. Taking from the rich to give to the poor. Yeah, making some of these poor people very, very rich. So anyway, again, I'm not that familiar with this stuff. This is all, it's not in my wheelhouse, but I'm interested and I'm learning. So Joshua's bringing it in. And obviously some of our guests or some of our viewers have talked to us about it as well. And I think it's fascinating what's coming out from people in our lives talking about what they see on the show. So, all right. Do you have anything else you want to go over with the AMC and GameStop?
I actually like how you brought up the negative side of it, because it's, right now the internet is whooping our like hedge funds ass. They're whooping their ass, Chad. They're getting their ass whooped. And that's awesome because, it's almost like as a retail investor, you feel like you're part of this group, you're part of this, uprising against these big hedge funds. But at the flip side, those hedge funds, like you said, that's not their money. And maybe someone who has lost money in the, in their 401k because of this. So there's two sides of every event. And yeah, it's important to keep that in mind. But it will be interesting to see what happens, Chad, moving forward. I think it's going to keep going up, but I'm not a financial advisor. This is all for entertainment purposes only. And yeah.
Well, I will say that if you're right now being affected negatively with your retirement, consider that also, if it's directly related to the AMC and the GameStop because of the hedge fund manipulating them, well, consider that you're putting your money into a company that has bad intent or they're not for people. And you may want to find another place to find another company to manage your money. So if you did take a pretty good hit and you can link it back to having any kind of involvement with covering their short end, you may want to just move to another hedge fund that actually is a little more ethical. That would be my suggestion. But then again, I'm also not a financial advisor. I don't advise people on stocks. This is purely entertainment, as Joshua said. So, but I am somebody who likes to do things justly now, but I am not an SJW. No.
So I don't want to see, bad things to happen to people.
No.
Yeah, but there is one person that I wouldn't mind seeing get KO'd, and that is Jake Paul.
Fauci?
Jake Paul. Okay, Jake Paul. We talked about on the show before. Jake Paul did what I never, ever, ever thought that he would do. Never in a million years did I expect him to take Tyrone Woodley for his next opponent. I was like, he wants no part of that. No part of that, Chad. But it's happening. Have you ever seen Tyrone Woodley fight before?
Not at all.
Boy, Chad, he has a right hand like a nuclear bomb. Like, he's not Ben Askren. So Ben Askren, as big as a Ben Askren fan as I am, Ben Askren's boxing sucks. It's terrible. His striking is horrendous. He's a grappler. He's a wrestler. He takes you down. He beats you up. There's nothing really you can do about it. But in straight boxing with no takedowns, not very good. Didn't really ever need it. Tyrone Woodley, Chad, on the other hand, the complete opposite. Now, Tyrone can wrestle, but Tyrone is not really known for that. So Jake Paul might go to sleep, Chad, pretty quick.
Little nap. Yeah. So does he hit like Tyson?
Yeah, and you never see it coming.
Oh, shit.
It's so fast. That's one of the.
Okay.
That's really what he's known for, is that gigantic right hand. And like, go watch some of his highlight videos as the fight gets a little bit closer. It's August 28th. I actually did it pretty quick. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be in September. We know that Logan is fighting Floyd Mayweather this Sunday, right, Chad? Remember,
Yeah.
So here's my prediction for the overall grand scheme of things. Logan gets his ass whooped by Floyd Mayweather in a bad way. I'm predicting stoppage. All right, so we'll have one episode before the fight, but I'm predicting stoppage. Tyrone is going to knock Jake Paul out probably in the second round, because Jake's never been hit in his life. And the Paul brothers will just disappear into the, to the fight ether, Chad, and we'll move on.
Yeah. Well, hey, this is something I'll give the Paul brothers. Now, one thing that comes to mind is the Paul brothers are both about to get their ass kicked. And there's a lot of people that want to watch that happen, because they're not exactly the internet's favorite people. They're they're jackasses. Right? That's what I know about them. Everything I've seen about them, I know more about Jake than I do Logan, but they're just jackasses. They're YouTube influencers that just want to shock value to get more views, clicks, and all the rest of that. You know what? But if that's the method, look, there's always a consequence long term. All the people that are watching it will have some degree of influence on them, whether they just think it's funny or if they repeat the behaviors, the copycat type stuff, and go off and do other stupid shit. I gotta tell you, some of my favorite videos, whenever it's like the prank videos, is when the prankster actually gets knocked the fuck out. Because in what world, and it's never made sense to me, where somebody's like, they go off, they do something stupid, a stupid ass prank to somebody they don't know, and then they get caught, right? They try to run away, they get caught, and they're like, chill. The international cry of "don't hurt me." Chill. It's a prank show, man. It's a prank show. I'm like, that doesn't invalidate the fact you were just a dipshit. So if you're going to go do something stupid to somebody, if you're doing it for notoriety, then keep the clip in where you actually take a little nap. Even freaking Devins agrees with this one. So yeah. So now we actually get the experience of some karmic justice, if you will. So the likelihood that Logan's going to beat Mayweather is next to not likely going to happen. It's not impossible, but odds don't favor that at all in the least bit. And then with Jake, which I do know more about, and he seems like a sociopath. He's just reckless, careless about other people's safety and well-being. It's the hyper spontaneous type behavior that can lead to a lot of problems. So he gets in there and this guy gives him a dynamite knockout punch. It may humble him a little bit, but here's the thing on the positive side for it all. These guys are not just dabbling in this stuff. They're diversifying themselves in the entertainment arena. They're not staying on, I'm just going to do stupid shit in my mansion, or I'm just going to say crazy stuff, whatever. Now they've branched into a physical element of it where they're getting out there and they're actually doing something that a lot of people can show a lot of appreciation for, but they have a history of being jackasses. Now, a lot of fighters have a history of being a jackass in the way that they try to promote themselves. You see how many times Ronda Rousey was actually tried by the people that were stepping up as opponents, right? There were plenty of women that were just jackasses in that. They didn't give mutual fighter respect. They're like, I'm better than you. And there's this hyper egoic inflation issue. So, but I will say again, to continue on this thought is, I have to give these guys credit for the fact that they are diversifying themselves and they're living a fuller life than the average person. They're living a fuller life than the average successful YouTube influencer, because they're diversifying their exposure. They're also diversifying their experiences. So you know what? I'm not in there fighting Mayweather. Even if I trained for it and he would accept the fight, I wouldn't mind that kind of money. But I'm also not delusional to think that my life of not training in boxing is going to do me a whole lot of benefit when I get in the ring with Mayweather. but Mayweather is a very big ticket. That is the biggest ticket in boxing. And Logan Paul got in. I have to give him credit for that. You know, and so he's just expanding out. What will they do next? Will they disappear? I doubt they'll disappear. But they may never show up to be macho again in that presence. They may evolve into something else that is natural for human beings, or they'll grapple with it. They'll say that there was something that was unfair or whatever and deny the outcome of the fights. Who knows what's going to happen? Or perhaps both of them conduct the biggest upset in the world that they've ever seen, right? And both of them win their fights. Who knows? But I will give them that. They went from Disney Club, Disney Kids, to YouTube influencers, to now they're stepping in the ring with some extremely good fighters. Now, I got to give them credit.
Oh yeah, you got to give credit. I mean, like you said, even if I, trained for a year and I spent all my time DMing Floyd Mayweather trying to say, hey, let me get a fight with you, let me get a fight, he's never going to answer. Never. It'd be a waste
even punching you in the parking lot.
Yeah.
He's not going to do that. He's not going to run the risk of the lawsuit, and he's not going to give you the opportunity. He's just going to be like, man, you're a joke.
Yeah.
This guy's actually going in with a contract to take quite a few hits. So again, boxing's not my biggest thing. That's not my biggest focus point. But I do like the science values to it. I like the psychology to it. I like the science of movement. I like all of those things. But it's just not, I'm not a fan overall, but I am a fan of the sciences of it. So with that, it's really fascinating to see how people do get caught up in it. Now, everything you've talked about it, Joshua, to this point has always been about the stats and facts. There's not a whole lot of fanboy stuff that I hear out of you. You're not like denying things. It's just you're looking at the statistics of it. You're looking at the winning histories. You're looking at the outcomes of these things. You're looking at the facts of history in fighting. So, but I do know people that are like, they don't care. They like somebody. They don't give a damn the win, lose, or draw. They're going to say that they got underhanded if it wasn't a win.
That's true. That's true. Especially in the fight game, because you're right. Now that I think about it, the reason why, again, just to reiterate what you said, I don't think that I'm being a hater, right? I just want to see Jake Paul get KO'd. Now, is it amazing that a Disney Channel kid is now fighting a former UFC welterweight champion, a Hall of Famer in mixed martial arts, and his brother is fighting literally the greatest boxer of all time? I mean, you can't hate that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I do want to see him lose. And it will be, so I look at it this way, and this is why I think they're going to lose. I like how you said this, Chad. So Logan's boxing record is 0-1-1, so he's never won a match. And he's had one no contest, which I didn't get to watch the whole fight. I did hear that it could have been the other way, and there was some things happening behind the scenes. But he's fighting someone who's 50-0, literally the greatest boxer of all time. And I just don't see anything in my brain that tells me or anything in my fight history that he can win. Obviously, he's a much bigger guy, so he's got the power. Everyone's got a puncher's chance no matter who you are. If someone slaps you the wrong way, you could go to sleep. So there's some things that are out of your toughness control, I guess you could say. You'll just physiologically go to sleep.
Yeah.
So it's always a puncher's chance, Chad. Now, if you're a betting man, Chad, it's actually probably better to bet on Logan and see what happens, because you have to. I think you got to. What was it? It was either 16 or 24. I haven't checked it lately. You have to bet at least $1,600 on Floyd Mayweather to win $100. So it's not really a lot of appeal to that. You don't want to bet 16 to win 100. But with Logan, you could bet 100 and win 900, or I think it was either 7 or 9 last time I looked.
Yeah. A betting man would go with the greater reward, but you also want to mitigate your risks. So, you could lose $100 and just be out $100.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or you could bet 1,600 and leave with 1,700. It's not a big return for your investment, but hey, it's not a big risk. That's why they do it the way they do. So I don't know. It's interesting, and I'm looking forward to learning more. Again, it's not that I'm not interested in getting in further. I highly doubt I'll ever be a fanboy of anybody in any sport, because I'm not yet. I'm 41 years old. I'm not a fanboy for anybody, for any sport. Now, does that mean that I don't value the science, the psychology, the movement, the biomechanics of it, the sheer tact and development, the hard work, everything that goes into that? I appreciate it, and I'm growing more of an appreciation, because obviously with what we talk about on the show, it does give me more insight. It opens up other little corridors in my own mind to give me more appreciation. This is, again, I'm not that I don't appreciate it. It's just not something that I've given a whole lot of allowance of thought. So with that, it's just opening up a little bit more. Who knows how much further it'll go? I know this is not the favorite section for some people, but other people really love it. So we try to keep the program itself, as it is, a bit diverse in itself. So I don't have a whole lot more to say about this, but we do have a few more topics. Do you have anything else to cover before we jump off the Jake getting his ass fucking stomped?
No, but it's talking about sports, Chad. We might as well just segue right into the next one. So our very own governor, Chad, Governor DeSantis, someone we all love on this show. I'm pretty sure everyone on this show loves Ron DeSantis. Everyone in Florida, Chad, loves Ron DeSantis. Yes. Signed a bill banning transgender males from competing in women's sports. And this was something I think really needed to happen. And not anti-trans, not anti-LGBTQ, but just solely on the fact that given our current circumstances as far as gender identity and all that is, that we have to start looking at our athletics in a different way. No matter what you identify as, if you have a testosterone advantage, which all males do over females, and that creates an unfair competition for females. It's just plain and simple. Biologically, nothing you can do about it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Yeah. And I love to see that our governor is putting his foot forward in protecting women's sports in Florida, Chad.
I'm completely with that. I'm a huge proponent for, if you want to compete, if you're a man who want to compete with women by claiming that you're another gender or identifying differently, third classification, transgender athletes only. I'm okay with that. I'm more of an advocate for, you leave women's sports to women. If you have an unfair advantage, in which there's a lot of science deniers on that, which saying that there's no difference in whatever, the left can't sit on that little high moral pedestal and claim that anybody else is unintelligent and denying science whenever they make those kind of claims. So with that, it's not okay in my book for somebody who washed out in powerlifting to go over and break women's records just solely because now he's a transgender female and he's over there competing with women. So you're 6'3", you're 290 pounds. Yes, you're going to be able to break a lot of records because your body is able to do so. But if that takes away a scholarship from a woman, I have a problem with it. Because this is women's sports for a reason. We've talked about this before. In the NBA, the WNBA can play in the NBA if they can get selected, but the NBA cannot play in the WNBA. So that's why the WNBA is there, is to give women an opportunity to really get out and fucking kill it on the basketball court. But if you really wanted to mix them together, the team only has room for so many people. So I like that we can separate the two different, platforms and allow them to be able to have their own opportunities. So with that, yeah, DeSantis, awesome job, 100%. I'm not transphobic, but then again, you start using the language of the left, then you go to their arguments, and then you get pulled in. What I've noticed, and this is beneficial for anybody who's watching right now too, in my opinion, is you do not want to answer or you don't want to be a part of an argument that's staged against you before it started. Like the concept of, like, let's say if I say, Joshua, when did you stop beating your wife? If you tell me I've never beat my wife, you just joined my argument.
Mm.
And it's not an easy one to get out of because they like to throw that stuff on you when you're not paying attention. So the way around those kind of things is, you don't answer that. No, you don't deny it, because now you put yourself in the arena. And if you don't have a segue into showing the absurdity of the question or the argument, then you're stuck in it. It's a mucky quicksand type thing. So what the left likes to do predominantly, and again, just in case it's your first time watching the show, I'm not the right. I'm not on the right. I have a lot of conservative values. I'm just non-party affiliated. I've watched from the fence for a long time and just watched the differences in rationale over the years and decided that the majority of what I see on the left is fucking lunacy. So the creation of all kinds of just different agendas pushed against somebody else, and this significant degree of gaslighting. And that is almost exclusively coming from the left. I don't see a lot of gaslighting coming out of the right. I'm still sitting on the fence. And I'm not saying I'm Republican, not MPA. No, I vote where logic lies. That's where I go with it. I don't vote because I like somebody. It's not because they're a celebrity or any of that nonsense. So with this, I'm not an advocate for having these people just being able to, well, you know what? I'm going to go over here and I'm going to get all these free rides and scholarships because I have better performance overall. No, let's just do this. Transgender, they have their own specific compete with each other sport. You do it right alongside. You have the men's, the women's, or the women's and men's, whichever way you want to do it. The different separate categories, and then on the third one, transgender athletes, and let them have at it. Set new records. You are the brand new first people in. Make records, and then from there, that's your category. Have a great time. You can compete in every single sport, but you're not going to take your genetic unfair advantage against women into their sport.
How many, Chad, how many trans men have you seen compete in men's sports at a high level?
None.
I can't even name, obviously, I'm sure there's somewhere, but I can't name of anything that I've at least seen on the news or, broadcasted that there was that occurred, that a trans man. So it's interesting to see that it's always trans women in women's sport, but you really don't see it the other way around. So for those that say there's a naysay as far as there's not a biological advantage, again, like Chad said earlier, I'm a stats guy. That's an easy little stat that we just did for you guys right there. Interesting. So one is breaking records, and one we're not even sure it's happening, but there's no biological advantage. It's crazy, Chad. It's crazy.
And that's the argument on the left. It's a quicksand argument. As soon as you get involved in it, you become part of it. And for me, I'm just like, I just want to throw the stats at it. I don't care about somebody's feelings. We've gotten so incredibly overwhelmed with worrying about people's feelings. You know that everybody has a relative perspective of reality, and how they choose to interpret an event could be you were the nicest person in the world and they still made some sort of offense out of your behavior. And then they're curtailing you by ridiculing you that you offended them. And because of you having decency about you to concern yourself with the way they feel, you'll start changing your behavior so that you don't offend them, even though you just did everything you could to be nice. So it's a control mechanism to get you to change your own behavior. So the world needs assholes. They do. I'm sorry. I was raised, you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. I also realize with that is that sometimes you got to tell somebody that they're a piece of shit. You got to tell somebody you're an asshole, or it's your time. You need to be an asshole, because niceness creates consent. If you don't agree with something and you can't figure out how to tell them no in a way that they'll accept it and not be offended, which is going to be a hell of a lot of work for you, and eventually you're not going to get out of that. You're going to be condemned to their feelings. So if you want to live that life, you will eventually get into something called thought crime. And thought crime, George Orwell brought this up, which is where you start getting in trouble just because the way you think, not even anything you say, but you're in trouble to yourself because you know that it's a rejected position based off of society, because we continue to let parts of our society slip in to the outrage concepts. I'm offended. I love the author, Christopher Hitchens. He is a fantastic writer, great author, wonderful speaker. He would say one of his famous quotes was, when somebody says you offended me, be like, I'm failing to see your point. I don't care. It sucks. I'm not out to intentionally offend people. But if it's necessary, then by all means, I'm going to share my view. And I'm damn sure not going to curtail my view so that it's more to your sentimental. It's more, you like it more. It's more pleasant to you. I'm sorry. If you have no value in your no, your yes means nothing. If you can't say no to somebody, your yes has no value. If you get down to the core values of it, does that make sense, Joshua?
Oh, absolutely.
No,
Yep.
you need to be able to hold your ground. If you say no, that means you're not okay with something. You're not willing to be a part of something or whatever it is. You put a stop. But if you can't do that, you will overextend yourself. Your yes will be less valuable. So if you want to be able to have a life fulfilled and not doing everybody else's life, which is what happens when you have a weak no value, you will live somebody else's life. They will make you live their life because they'll keep you saying yes so that you don't offend them. I'm okay with offending people. I'm just not going to do it intentionally most of the time. But I will give privilege and permission for myself, an allowance that if I feel that the moment is desirable and preferable to do it, then yeah, I'm probably going to do it. But I do it with the understanding that there are consequences to it. And I don't ever plan on abusing anybody ever. But that's also part of a slippery slope because people get caught up in this idea of abuse. And they think that they keep moving the goalpost on what's abusive. You go from just disagreeing with people to now they have things called microaggressions. And they've categorized microaggressions as a way of abusing somebody because you're treading on them. You're causing them problems. And what it is it's powder puffing people. It's making them, it's trying to nerf the world. Doesn't work. It makes people more offended in life. It makes them more hostile in life. It makes them more upset, takes away the values and the depth of meaning in life. Because now instead of having a purpose to drive you forward, to make a future for yourself and to work hard, you're more caught up in this. I got to find out how I'm going to be offended next. And aren't you offended at that? No, you should be offended about that. I'm offended. You're not offended. It's just fucking lunacy. So back over to the transgender because I went down that fucking rabbit hole. So the transgender stuff, look, if you want to identify transgender, that is completely up to you. You're not in my bedroom. I don't care. If you and I interact in public and you say, please refer to me to something, then there's probably a chance I'll refer to you in what you've requested. But I may ask you your name instead of the pronoun of choice. Because I like to call people by their name versus a pronoun that they're waiting for me to violate so they can be offended and try to make me an internet, enemy, some sort of horrific human being and put me on internet trials in the public square. So with that, you pick it, your call. I prefer to call you by your name. But if you insist by some specific pronoun, it's a pretty good chance that I'll agree to call you that. But if I feel you're doing it just solely to be a jackass, probably I'll just call you by your name. So with that, back to the sanctity of sports and women's sports predominantly, because that's the one under fire. As Joshua mentioned, we don't see a whole lot of transgender men competing in men's sports and knocking men down and getting grants or scholarships, things that, and monuments erected in their names for their performance and athletic performance. We do see it the other way. Third category, transgender athletes. Or you can make two categories for that. I don't care. But if it's a scholarship set up for women, biological women should have access to that scholarship, not biological men identifying as women. That's just where I'm at with it. I promise you, if you look at my body of work, you wouldn't call me a bigot. You wouldn't call me a racist or homophobe, nothing like that. but those are just the choice words because that's what outrage culture likes to do. Cancel you. A culture cancer.
No one's saying that trans people don't have the right to compete. No one's saying that.
Absolutely not.
What people are saying is that there should be, with this new upcoming of this gender, we have to make sure that the right people are competing against the right people, and that right people are receiving the scholarships, all the opportunities given to only a select few, that it's not being, manipulated or diluted with people who necessarily shouldn't be in that category. So yeah, I completely agree, Chad. I completely agree with all of that. I had so many little snippets that I was going to jump in there, but I agree with all of it. So compete, be you, right? Don't be who you're not. You know who you are. We're all for that, and we'll see what happens. I think this is going to be, how many states have done it? I know at least a few. Florida's not the first. I think Texas is the first. But Florida's, we're on board with it. So I can't wait to see what happens moving forward, Chad.
Yeah. And other states are following suit, and we're following suit from other states. There's plenty of them that have actually gone on now. I'm not exactly sure how many have signed this into law, but I know that we're not alone. That's for sure. So with that, just know that I don't care about your identity. I don't care about any value when it comes to your identity. I care less about that. I care everything about your character. So that's what I seek out in my relationships. All types of relationships, I look for character. I'm not going to have a business event or a business opportunity where I'm going to sit there and try to go off of some sort of quota about your identity, to make sure that I've got the right amount of people that have the identity characteristics, or I'm sorry, it's not characteristic. It's the identity values that's expected, so that I show that I have diversity in my life and that I don't have some sort of biases. We all have biases. We're always going to have them. Get over it and shut the fuck up about it. We don't care. But point of it being is, I'm going to make decisions. If I'm going to show up to actually talk about business, I'm going to talk about the character values. I'm going to talk about the resources, talk about history and what the long-term intent is. And if I hear a single thing about somebody bringing up an identity value with that, I'm going to lose interest, because I know that they're going to be allocating their thinking process to something that is not to the goal. And the goal be whatever the hell it is that we want to produce in the company or the business venture. That's it. I care about your character. Because I care nothing about the color of your skin, sexual orientation. I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't care about your political positions. As long as I understand you're capable of doing what I need to have done with the venture that I'm going on. That's it. Character over identity. That's where I am. So the rest of it, if you're going to come on like an asshole, there's a mirror of you behave one way, you get it in reciprocation. So, and that's something that we're going to see more of a rise in as this identity politics nonsense continues to run out of control like a wildfire. The firefighters that'll show up will be the people that give the mirror back to the people. If you're going to be an asshole, you get treated like an asshole. It's a reciprocal relationship. I'm not up for abusive relationships. I'm not into that stuff. So I'm damn sure not going to sit there and let somebody berate me and tell me that I'm a horrible person because I don't agree with their views. That's where discourse comes in, but the left seems to be incapable of that. And again, I'm still sitting on the fence between the two parties. It's just the left keeps proving to me why I should never vote Democrat for anything. I hope that someday I meet somebody that changes my mind in that, but so far it seems like that party is just, they're huffing some sort of amazing gas that's just got them all kinds of fucked up. They're partying over there. They don't even give a shit. We got a checkbook. Let's just keep writing. Don't worry, we dominate everybody with our votes. Yeah, tell the populace.
The Gen Zs, Chad. The Gen Zs are the problems, Chad. We were talking about on the show before, so Chad and I were talking about, I'm our show Millennial, and Chad, you are, what are you? Are you X?
Yep.
Okay, Gen X.
Gen X. And I'm on the tail end of Gen X. I'm right at the very last years. But we do see things a little bit differently. So Joshua and I were talking about this, and I was actually going on a little bit of a rant before the show started, talking about like whenever it comes to reading, what you do see a bit of, like with millennials, and me just being a little facetious, but mostly, Joshua would back this up too. is if there's not enough pictures in it, you're not likely going to read it. And it doesn't mean you're not intelligent. It is not what I'm saying. It's just, I've just seen a lot more Zennials and Millennials that will, if it doesn't have, if there's not broke up enough into the right paragraphs, they're just not going to read it. They're not going to bother with it, or they'll read a little bit and stop. Now, I'm not saying this is exclusive. Every single millennial is this way. I don't do that to people, but I'm saying that as a commonality that I have seen. Doesn't mean that boomers don't do it, Gen X doesn't do it, Zennials don't do it. Doesn't mean any of that. I just see that there's a bit more of a concentration of the millennials that I've talked to that do that. If I don't see enough pictures broke up in the sentences and everything else, the paragraphs are not too long, I'll read it. But I got to have those pictures. Or even better, there's an article. Scroll in. If you don't see a video, nah, I ain't reading it. Give me the video. I don't want to read it, right?
I'm weird. So with me, a millennial, I don't like videos in the articles. So that's the one thing I will not read. I will not read the article if there's a video. It takes me first to a video. Sometimes I do like to read it, but if I ever go to an article and there's no pictures at all, and it's just a bunch of words, and they really didn't design the text very well, and it didn't go around the pictures, they didn't have just the right amount of wordings where you can sit through 5 minutes and just read something you might learn from, I might move on from it, Chad. So I'm completely guilty of this all the time. And the older I get, as an aging millennial, I am becoming more aware of my behavior patterns that have been bestowed upon me thanks to the internet, and I'm trying to change them. But it's absolutely true. Again, not for all millennials, but I bet you every millennial deep down inside right now. So, I don't do that. I read it, and there's a little bit of, so you've read every article that hasn't had a picture, or that wasn't there wasn't some coloring back there, some background, there was some kind of, pull in, click, watch this, some crazy title. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Could you imagine? So it's just to point at this, like what you're saying is that in order for you to really, and to have a higher likelihood you're going to read the entire article, is if it's aesthetically pleasing enough. Like it has to look good in order to read it, right? I've come across, especially in my college books, and then I have a library also at the house. There's some books that have unbelievably deep, fantastic, gripping information about physiology, the digestive tract, its relationship to your brain's function, things like that. But it is in this old school college rule style. It is just like block after block after block after block for what is it, 540 pages.
Jeez.
With a couple of pictures here and there. Now, how many people just by looking at it would never touch it?
I know.
Like for me, it's dry, but it is so informative. I read it in chunks. Could you imagine if we keep going this path, or we keep going this route? You've seen the movie Idiocracy, right?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. So, Idiocracy was an earthquake at Joshua's house. With Idiocracy, if for anybody who hasn't watched it, it's about this dystopic future where there's a gentleman that's in the army. He's very average Joe, very, very average guy. By the way, these are spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, by all means, you may want to stop this part or skip it. But so he works at it. He's in the army. He gets reassigned he's a librarian in the army, and he gets assigned to a specific project. He goes to this project. Again, he's very average. He's not in any way excelling. He's not special in any way other than the fact that he's so incredibly average. He goes to report to this new project that he's been assigned to. He goes in, talks to the person. It turns out they're doing some cryo freeze type of technology or experiment, and they bring one civilian in and the one service person. Turns out the civilian she's a prostitute. She's actually, the movie's pretty damn funny. But so these two get put into these cryo beds, and then they forget about the project. It was a very short window. It was more than a day, but it was a very short window that they were just supposed to freeze them and then unfreeze them and bring them back or resuscitate them and just see the experiment and what it was and all this. So how it affected their bodies. Well, it ended up getting scrapped. And then I believe it was a century goes by, and they scrap the entire building. They end up moving these 2 cryotubes or beds off to a landfill, and it opens up into this new world of idiocracy where these 2 cryotubes or cryo beds slide down. The one with the guy that was in the service, the average guy, crashes into a house. They wakes up, comes out of the tube or the bed, and then he starts discovering this incredibly dystopic reality, this new world of people that have been dumbed down over the years. Mike Judge created it. He did an awesome job. If you're not familiar with his work, created Beavis and Butthead, Office Space. I forgot there was another really popular one. I keep forgetting that he did it. But he's done a really good job. Extract is another one that he did. So, but Idiocracy was another one. It's a cult classic. Didn't do very well in the box office, but it's really stood the test of time. And it's been used kind of as a parody towards what we're creating now, which is this idiocracy. So what I was bringing this up for initially is because in that, everything had to continue to get dumbed down over the years to the point where language is all slang, and they use a lot of pictures and videos and stuff. And, it's an interesting movie. It's worth your watch. You should definitely check it out. But imagine we keep going this route that we're currently going down, where if the font isn't right, or it's the structure of the page isn't aesthetically pleasing enough, that you just dismiss it. I'm not reading that. Imagine how much further before it gets to the point where I ain't reading it unless it's in a video and it's somebody's narrating it.
Oh, I know. And it's spawned into other things too, like social media. It took me a while before I realized that instead of just doing a Facebook post, writing out words, that I could just click this little button and it would go behind this like green screen, or that like these different colored backgrounds that you can put your text on top of. And chat, they get way more views, way more likes. I should do an experiment for a week, Chad, and not use any backgrounds, make it as bland as I can, put the same wording, and then flip it around and see what the difference is. Because I guarantee you that more people are going to watch the more colorful ones. So it's spawning off into everything. And yeah, it's only going to get worse because social media has to keep up with entertainment. Everyone needs your attention, like you said, Chad, not just the people in your life, not just your job, not just your family, but everything around you with the advertising and the freaking news and the social media and the sports and all this crazy. Everyone needs our attention now. And all they can do is figure out more ways to get your attention. Like what? The color yellow and red make you hungry. Look at Burger King and McDonald's. All that's on purpose. It's meant to pull you in and to use your own subconscious against you to get them to do what they want you to do. That's my little tangent for the day. There's a reason why all this colorful video picture stuff works, and it's because they need us, Chad. They need us.
Yeah. It's interesting, and as a thought that came to mind here is, that social media has really entered people's psyche. When you can go to a movie theater and you can't watch the entire film without somebody pulling their phone out to update their Facebook or their social media status. It's like this thing that you're dedicating 2 hours or whatever timeline, and people can't go through the entire thing without updating or checking their feed or whatever. Like, that's an addiction. But they've done it. They've made it so incredibly effective to get into people's lives that we have people that, I've read articles where people complain that their partner during sex is updating their profiles and things, or their news feeds. It's insane to me. Now, that could say a lot about the relationship and other factors, but yeah, it's, wow. Can you believe it actually got that far? I read an interesting one, not to digress too far away from this, but we will have to move off the topic here soon. Joshua and I do plan on actually doing a little bit more as we realize kind of the differences between, at least with Gen X to Millennial and, Millennial to Zennials, to kind of like give us more insights on the way that the generations see the world. I think that's going to be really interesting over time. But so one of that I read recently was an article on a woman that was complaining about her husband. And she was complaining because her husband was so gripped with fear about the virus. I hate that we even have to refer to it that way, but unfortunately we do, because YouTube, Facebook, and other media sources are where we put our videos. They will restrict our videos or completely strike it and not let it be published. So we gotta be careful with what we choose to say. With this thing, the pandemic, I'm sorry, the virus, this guy was so incredibly afraid that he refused to take his mouth off whenever he and his wife would have sex. And she resented him. There was like, there were so many interactions that they had before they wouldn't do anymore. So it's really fascinating to see that. I've also seen multiple articles coming out that is the rise of the alpha male. And it's not really the rise of the alpha male as much as it is that women that fall more to the left have historically sought after beta males, guys that do not represent the alpha or the masculine type necessarily, or predominantly. They're a lot more softer in their approach, finding that a lot more women are starting to come out and say that they really like the conservative men sexually. They're attracted to them. They're drawn to them. They fantasize about them because they're alpha men. They're the kind of guys that would throw them around, put them in their place, treat them in certain ways. I'm finding articles like that, and I'm not going to mention all the language they use, but it's basically the 50 Shades of Grey type thing, where these women that found themselves or that are on the left have started to really look for and find a great deal of attraction to the men on the right because of how alpha that they happen to be. A lot of times the guys on the right are going to be far more alpha and the men on the left are going to be a bit more beta. It's not exclusive, but it seems to be more predominant to be a split divide value. So that's also something interesting. So, but anyway, all these little things that I've researched recently, it's pretty fascinating. And some of them I laughed at. Some of them I kind of wanted to cry because thinking about what has happened to us as human beings. So, Joshua, do you have anything else on the millennial versus Gen X?
No, I'm sure we're going to expand that topic. We're gonna let that spiral into each episode, and we'll bring up another thing. Maybe I'll try to find some characteristics that I see in Gen X that I don't see in millennials, and it should be a fun little game. We'll see how many things that. Let's see if I can guess what Gen X is, and let's see if you can guess. I know you can guess millennial. You've already got one right, but let's see. Let's see if you can get into your own subconscious chat and find little behavior patterns that are more so Gen X than other generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're more prone to being conservative. But anyway, it's not, again, none of this is exclusive individual, like everybody's individuals. But so one thing I wanted to bring up, you had mentioned, and you and I both had talked about, we can't think of any transgender males that have competed with men in sports and beat them. If anybody who's watching this video actually has somebody, by all means, comment in the comment section, give us a reference so we can look into it. We're happy to, expand further. This is waking the people for a reason. It wake us up too. If there's some place that we're missing, or just help us understand a different viewpoint. So, all right. Iran.
We might have his Facebook goodbye, Chad. They've been on here for a while. They need to come over and watch the show on the actual channel and hit that like button.
Yes. Well, let's go. We'll finish up this episode today with Facebook Live, and the next one we'll jump off a little bit earlier. Okay. Let them follow over. Okay. So, because I only have a little bit left. It's just the Iran issue today. What happened to Iran earlier in the day, it was sometime in the AM, their largest Navy vessel caught fire and sank. Later in the day, just a little bit after noon, I mean, that was noon our time. I'm not sure exactly what time that is for them there. One of their very large oil refinery caught on fire. Now, it's interesting, these are major events. They're not light events. Their largest Navy vessel caught fire and sank. That is a pretty big deal. It's not like a little fishing boat went out and it sank. this is a very big deal for their Navy. It's their largest vessel, and they don't exactly have a huge Navy fleet either. But so their largest vessel caught fire, sank. And then within hours, a large oil refinery in Iran caught fire. Now, what is it? What's going on? No telling. The media is actually not coming up with a whole lot of like theories like they did with so many other events. They're kind of not talking much about it, at least at this point. So we'll find out what's going on there. And other news on the further over, China, after Biden, bumbling and absent man, had asked for a probe into the COVID, the virus, and its origin. One of their main publications in China was publishing that they need to be ready for a nuclear war with the United States. So I'm going to look further into that, and then we'll cover this a little bit more in depth. This is just the first article I came across. Now with that, do know the way that we do this on the show. We'll let you know what we've come across, but we will look further into it, give you more details, and or correct what our initial was, depending on what we find. So, but we do want to mention it. It's something to look into. It is interesting. If it truly was Biden said, hey, I want to look, we want to start a probe into the origin of the coronavirus. And then, the Chinese publication puts out, be prepared for nuclear war with the United States. It's a pretty damn big deal. So it's across the world. Things are not exactly, we talked about the potential of World War III already. It's not to scare people. We're not fear mongering, anything like that. We're looking for the hot spots of where things are taking place. Israel and the Gaza Strip that's being held or being used by Hamas to attack Israel, still going on. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that we're not really clear about what's happening, and our media is not trustworthy. So we've got to dig in different places to try to find more information about this. So that's pretty much what I have on that. Do you have anything on that, Joshua?
Do they know, or maybe you said it already, do they know what happened to the ship, why it sank? Was it mechanical?
It caught fire and sank. That's all that I got so far. Now, there's speculation from some people that have been involved, like our military itself have actually witnessed Iranian, Iranian guards, or there's a specific group of Iranian soldiers. They actually caught them pulling these mines off of the hull of a vessel that the mine didn't go off. And they have been caught doing things like this, where they go off and they'll find a vessel, they'll attach these mines to the vessel, clear away from it, and then detonate it, and then sink the vessel. Now, what's going on with that is that, did they do it to themselves? Did they piss somebody off and somebody did the same tactic against them? Do they have a faction in Iran that's trying to conduct a coup? We don't know. And I'm just throwing out speculations, not that these are well thought out speculations, but that's all they got so far. But as far as like that actually was reported that the United States military has witnessed some of the Iranian military attaching or trying to remove one of their mines that didn't detonate off of a vessel that they reclaimed or pulled to shore or whatever. So we'll find out in time in the future and moving forward. We'll keep you guys posted on it, what we do find. So yeah. And a good question though. And as far as your refinery, no, I have no idea what happened there. Could be coincidental, but that's pretty ridiculous on a coincidence side of things, but it's conspiratorial to think that it's something else at this point. There's not enough information on it. So can't really say much more about it at the moment, but we will be looking into it to find out more. All right. Ready for the last segment?
Yeah, we'll do the last one, definitely. Look for that in the next upcoming episodes. I'm sure we're going to touch those topics. We're going to dive in a little bit and see if we can figure some stuff out for you guys.
Yep. Oh, yeah. So I had some of my peers ask me earlier today during a call that I had if I could summarize what we do at this show. And what I refer to it as is alt news, but what we really should call it is more like complete news, or the bigger story news, because we want more information. We don't want just what's been published by the mainstream media. We want to be able to find out all sides of the story, not just the narrative that we know has been put in, and this by all of them. CNN, MSNBC, CBS, Fox, all of those. They all typically have their agenda and they don't want to give you the whole story. They just want to get the story enough to win, more viewers and or their political views. They want to move them forward. So I was asked more of that, and I realized that I also needed to give my why. Why do I do this? Why do we do this after working long days and then come out to do this stuff? What could possibly push us to this point? So one of the events that was a wake up for me, and this is something that I'll share about my family and something that happened to us. On January 31st, I lost my niece in 2011. She was 3 years old when she died. Her mother, not related to me, she has had some issues. She was out partying, and she ended up taking a pill out of her pocket. It was a oxycodone or roxycodone, whichever. Put it on the nightstand, took a shower. When she came out, it was missing. She didn't really think too much of it. She looked around a little bit for it, and she did not live with my brother at the time. She had moved out. She was living with her boyfriend at the time. And she couldn't find the pill. Didn't think a whole lot about it. Prepared dinner for the kids, fed them, put them all to bed. In the morning when she woke up, my niece had passed. She had overdosed off of the pill. She found it, put it in her mouth, and that was it. There's a lot of stuff that happened at that time. And I can't tell you how heavy my heart is just telling the story, because she was 3 then. She would be in her teens now. Or almost, she'd be, what is that, 12, 13? Shit, Craig, my brother will kill me for not remembering how old she'd be. But with that, she would be, I think she'd be becoming an adult right now. It went through the court systems, all of that. What really woke me up was I knew what happened. Immediately, it was in my family. I knew what happened. The news. I mean, hell, what was it? Nancy Grace, remember that talking head? I don't know if she's still on or not. I hate that woman.
I think she's doing it.
Yeah, she brought it up on one of her segments. She got it wrong. Intentionally, in my opinion, she got it wrong. Journalists are supposed to know the whole story before they start talking about it. Otherwise, they're offering irresponsible journalism, or update people. We're going to get more on this, is what we understand at the moment. She didn't do that. The Tampa Bay Times, they let us down. I read the articles. They painted the picture of my niece's mother in this very innocent light, of this sweet person and all of this. She lost her daughter, and really played it out that she was like a victim in this, and that when they went over and started talking about my brother, they actually talked about him in more of a negative light, or they gave him very little consideration for anything. I reached out to them to try to talk to them more about what happened, to clean up the report, because they got it wrong and they refused to speak with me. They wanted nothing to do with me. They had their narrative that was set. My other brother, my older brother, also reached out. His wife reached out. We all tried to correct the story. We wanted them to understand what was going on. They only talked to my youngest brother, the father. And they didn't even put everything in that he talked about. They took out what they liked, what supported the narrative, and they published it. Their Facebook page went off with it. People started chiming in and they were giving their opinions, and we were getting involved and saying we're cleaning it up. And what they were like going back to was, well, why isn't the news reporting this? If you're saying it, you must be wrong because the news didn't report that. I'm like, fuck you if you think I'm wrong. It's my family. It's my niece, you piece of shit. And I realized it wasn't yes, that was a useful idiot that I was engaging. There's multiples of them. The bigger issue goes back to the media didn't care. They set their narrative. They completely they fucked up the story like crazy. And then one of the radio show hosts in Tampa was talking about it, and my brother happened to be listening at the time, and he called in to let him know, hey, this is what's going on. This is what really happened. It was my daughter. This is what happened. It was all recorded. It wasn't on the air when he did it. He recorded it, and then they published it. They cut up his conversation with the show host, which, by the way, I actually know the guy now, 10 years later, and I still have to manage myself because of the way he spread this bullshit, this vile nonsense about my brother, and stated that it seemed more like my brother was more interested in just getting some concert tickets than talking about the loss of his daughter. And that was in no way the conversation went. So when people want to understand my why, that's one of them. The other, obviously, is what I experienced whenever the media was trying to tear Trump apart. And I got full videos of what he said and then what the media was breaking down and fitting into their narrative. So what is it that pushes me? I lost somebody I love. And the media fucking lied. They lied their ass off. And they lied in such a way that it minimized everything. Now, there's more to it. I'm not going to go through everything. I'm not going to say who the person is. I'm not going to give names, nothing like that. But I am saying Tampa Bay Times was culpable. They lied. Oh, there were other news publications that picked it up. But that's my why. My why is that I've experienced lies firsthand, and they do it. And sometimes it has nothing to do, but just a little bit more filler with some emotion they can get packed into it before they move on to the next story. I'm not going to tolerate being lied to. And that's why if I do watch the news, I'm looking for what they want to say and then what actually happened. So that's why I do this with Waking the People. Now, I didn't really give Joshua the heads up I was going to do this in this episode. I went to my father's grave on Monday, and I went to my oldest brother's grave and another brother of mine that passed when he was 3. And then I stopped by to see my niece on the way out at her grave. And it brought it to me. I actually have a recording of myself in the cemetery, but it brought it to my awareness that this is worth sharing with you guys. Is I'm not just somebody looking for notoriety. Yeah, I'd like to do this long term and do it to a higher capacity, as the show grows and we obviously, earn more doing it. But it's also because you have the right to know the whole fucking story. And the media has chosen not to give it to you. Predominantly, mainstream media has chosen not to do it. And they'll turn it however they want so that they can get the best benefit out of it. That's one of the reasons why I do this. And I just don't like these bastards lying. So not really, I didn't prep Joshua for it, so I wouldn't fault him for not actually having his why ready. But if he doesn't, we could always try to bring that up in the next episode. So Joshua,
I'm sorry to hear that, Chad. I did text you on Monday and said gave my condolences to you, and I didn't. You never even told me that story before. So, as always, you guys heard a live, interaction with Chad and I had no clue we were going to talk about that. But as far as my why, and Chad alluded to it earlier, it was the fact that we can never let the conversation die. It can't always be one person's right because of this, and there's no room to change each other's mind. And the conversation between human beings just comes to an end. That's how civilizations end. That's how humanity ends, is that when there's no longer a discussion, you're no longer allowed to have your own viewpoints, you're no longer allowed to be you, and you're supposed to be whatever they say is you. So that would be my why. To always keep the decision or the discussions going, even when the conversation or the topic is not very pleasant to talk about. Because even things that we don't like to talk about are good to talk about, because it's good to get other people's perspectives around you and to get insight into their viewpoints in life that maybe you can use to help, shift your own viewpoints a little bit. Dive into yourself and see if the reasons why you think the way you think are because of your own thoughts, or maybe what someone else told you previously before. So that would be my why, Chad.
No, to think for yourself.
Yes,
It's a good,
always.
yeah. Yep. No need to actually be some sort of, robot for somebody else, or told how you're supposed to think, or told how you're supposed to feel. Become more independent, not dependent. I like that. Well, that's what I've got for today's episode. Anything else you want to throw in there before we get off?
No, just thank you guys for watching another episode. It's hump day. Wednesdays are probably my least favorite day, Chad. It's not good to say that you have a least favorite day. That just creates negativity. But if I had to pick a least favorite day, it's not Monday. I actually kind of like Mondays. I'll have to pick Wednesday. So we made it to hump day. We're getting over the hump. We got a fight this weekend. We got another show coming y'all's way on Friday. We'll see what continues to happen with all the AMC and that madness. I'm sure we'll bring it up again as we got a couple days between now and then. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to pound that bell. Get all the notifications. Hit the likes, comment, share. Tell us what you guys think. If we're wrong, tell me I'm wrong. At least show me something. Speak your guys' opinions. That's what this is all about. I want to hear what y'all think. It's not about what I think, right? Think what you think, but know why you think what you think. And just stay golden, Pony Boy. You'll be all right.
I love it. Yeah. Well, remember, we're all in this together. We're Americans. We need to act like it. So with that, we'll catch you on the next episode. Until then, like Joshua said, subscribe, like, comment, share the video. And if you have anything you want to send us as far as like communications off of the comments, but more privately, you could always send us a message at wakingthepeoplepodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, we'll catch y'all later.